From Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with a delegation from the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations at the presidential complex in the capital Ankara this week. Attendees included prominent figures such as Osama Jamal, Secretary General of USCMO, Imam Ayman Aishat of CARE National, and Zahid Bukhari of ICNA. Erdogan expressed concern about Islamophobia and called on American Muslim leaders to inform U.S. Congress and other political bodies about its dangers. He stressed using freedom of expression as a pretext for attacks on the Quran undermines social peace and stability. He called such attacks clear hate crimes and barbarism. Erdogan stressed the need to adopt UN resolutions that classify violence against holy scriptures as a violation of international law. He called on countries to take action against such hate crimes. Erdogan also addressed political issues and emphasized the influence of the American Muslim community. A CNN poll released Thursday shows President Joe Biden's approval rating has dropped to 39%. This is the lowest level of the American network has recorded for Biden in 2023, down from 41% in July and 45% in January. The poll shows 61% of Americans disapprove of the president. At the beginning of Biden's first year in office, his approval rating was above 50%. Now, 67% of the Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters believe the party should consider nominating someone other than him. Nearly 3/4 of Americans also have serious concerns about how Biden's age might affect his current physical and mental competence. A federal judge has ordered the state of Texas to remove floating river barriers in the Rio Grande. U.S. District Judge David Ezra issued a temporary restraining order by requiring Texas to remove the river buoys of September 15th at the state's expense. Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered state authorities in July to place the floating barriers in the Rio Grande, the international border between the U.S. and Mexico. The Biden administration filed a lawsuit arguing the state had not received permission from the federal government to put up the barriers. It also said the structures prevented U.S. Border Patrol agents from patrolling the area and endangered migrants crossing the river. The judge also barred the state from building similar structures in the middle of the Rio Grande. Abbott said Texas would appeal the ruling. Republican lawmakers in Congress are trying to block President Joe Biden's new plan for student loan relief. The plan, called Saving on a Valuable Education, would base monthly payments of student loans on borrowers' income and family size. This means borrowers earning $15 per hour or less would not have to make monthly payments. Others could save at least $1,000 a year. The SAVE plan was launched by the Biden administration just 2 weeks ago, and 4 million people already have signed up for it. But Republican lawmakers want to use the Congressional Review Act to repeal it. The act allows Congress to repeal regulations issued by federal agencies. Republicans opposed to the SAVE plan call it illegal and a mountain of debt laid at the feet of taxpayers. They argue it will encourage people to take out more student loans. Supporters say it is a necessary step to help borrowers struggling to repay student loans. They argue the plan is fair and will not cost taxpayers anything. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has issued a stark warning about the growing migrant crisis. He says it will destroy the city, which receives more than 10,000 migrants every month. During a town hall meeting, Adams said the city used to take in migrants from Venezuela, while today it sees an influx from Ecuador, Russia, and West Africa. The mayor also noted the far-reaching impact on the city, which has a $12 billion budget deficit. Since April 2022, an estimated 110,000 asylum seekers have arrived there. Republican-ruled states Texas and Florida recently have moved migrants to Democratic-run ones such as Washington, New York, Massachusetts, and California. GOP governors of those states argue they cannot bear the sole burden of dealing with irregular migrants crossing the Mexican border. Peter Navarro, a former trade advisor to former President Donald Trump, was found guilty Thursday of contempt of Congress. He had defied a subpoena from the House Special Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. The jury reached a unanimous verdict after a two-day trial. Navarro is the second Trump advisor to be held in contempt of Congress for defying a January 6th committee subpoena. The first is Steve Bannon. Navarro faces a maximum sentence of 1 year in prison and a fine of up to $100,000. He plans to appeal the verdict. He had been subpoenaed by the committee in February 2022 to testify and produce documents related to the investigation. Navarro refused on the grounds the committee was illegitimate and that he was protected by executive privilege. The committee argued Navarro's refusal to cooperate was a clear attempt to obstruct its investigation. Bringing more news stories after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. A discriminatory housing practice from the 1930s known as redlining is affecting bird biodiversity data in urban areas in the United States. Redlining was a system in which neighborhoods were ranked for real estate investments based on racial composition. Predominantly black or brown neighborhoods were often redlined, meaning they were considered high-risk investments and ineligible for loans and other financial assistance. This history of discrimination had led to a data gap in the avian biodiversity research. A study by Yale College ecologist Diego Ellis Soto found areas redlined in the 1930s had far less bird survey data than areas not redlined. Ellis Soto's study, for example, found more than 500,000 bird observations were recorded on the Yale campus in the past century. By contrast, the nearby predominantly black Dixwell neighborhood had little data. This discrepancy suggests racial bias has had an unintended effect on the collection of bird data. Ellis Soto's study also found the presence or absence of bird data was more closely related to the 1933 redlining maps than to climate or tree cover. Areas with less bird data are more likely to be overlooked for funding and protection. A lively scene played out on a basketball court in Memphis, Tennessee. About 50 girls, their jerseys emblazoned with the words Muslima baller, showed their enthusiasm for the sport. All are Muslim and many cover their arms and legs for modesty reasons, and some wear the hijab, the traditional headscarf. They come from all over North America and as far away as United Arab Emirates. They gathered to participate in a unique camp called Hooping in Faith, led by Bilqis Abdul Qadir, a 32-year-old former Division I basketball player. In 2010, Abdul Qadir became the first hijab-wearing woman to play top-level college basketball. Her professional ambitions were put on hold. However, when FIBA, the basketball world's governing body, barred her because of her religious attire. Still, Abdul Qadir persevered and in 2015 founded a non-profit Muslim girls' ball too. Hooping in Faith is not only a camp, but also a platform where she shares her wisdom as a Black Muslim athlete. She has taken on different roles, including coach and mentor. Hooping in Faith participants range in age from 12 to 26 and form a unique sisterhood. At the end of the camp, Abdul Qadir shared her joy with the players to see them play without restrictions. The World Health Organization is concerned about the rising number of COVID-19 cases and deaths in part of the world, particularly in the Middle East and Asia. It also noted hospitalizations are increasing in several regions. The WHO head Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the limited data available is concerning, with only 43 countries reporting deaths to the body. He said only 20 countries provide information on hospitalizations. Ghebreyesus also says there is no dominant coronavirus variant worldwide, but the EG5 variant is on the rise, while XBB subvariants are on the decline. Countries are being urged to take action to contain the spread of COVID-19 and other diseases. The UN has appealed for scaling up funds for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. It also allocated $8 million for Rohingya refugees staying in camps in Bangladesh's southeastern Cox's Bazar district and on the island of Bhasanchar. UN Resident Coordinator Gwen Lewis says the refugees remain entirely dependent on the international community funding. The UN Refugee Agency and its partners launched the Joint Response Plan in March with an appeal of $876 million to support 1.47 million refugees. As of September 6th, funds for the Joint Response Plan only reached about 30% of the appeal. More than 1.2 million Rohingya Muslims forcibly displaced from Myanmar live in congested camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh and Bhasanchar in the Bay of Bengal. Most of the refugees fled a brutal military genocide in August 2017 in Rakhine, a state on the western coast of Buddhist-majority Burma. The Chinese government is trying to transform the Xinjiang region, dominated by Uyghur Muslims, into a tourist hub. Kashgar, a city in the Uyghur Autonomous Region of Xinjiang, touted as a former oasis on the Silk Road, has been the focus of Beijing's initiatives. More recently, Beijing has invested in promoting a state-sanctioned version of Uyghur culture to attract tourists. Although tourists celebrate the region's traditional dress, authorities have banned local Uyghur women from wearing it. Local women have been banned from wearing veils and men from wearing long beards. Large parts of Kashgar's historic neighborhoods, including the Grand Bazaar, have been demolished and replaced as part of government-led development. Using tourism as a tool to promote Xinjiang, the region's tourism bureau plans to allocate more than $95.2 million in 2023, doubling its 2019 budget. A journalist representing French news agency AFP visited the area and found, despite these changes, allegations of systematic right violations such as forced labor and religious restrictions remain. While the security presence in tourist areas have been reduced, certain Islamic practices remain restricted. Numerous mosques have been shuttered or altered, reflecting ongoing tension between cultural preservation and state policy. Last month, President Xi Jinping urged authorities to strengthen positive publicity and show the new atmosphere of openness and self-confidence in Xinjiang. In Kashgar, roughly 24 mostly elder Uyghur men were seen entering Idkab Mosque for Friday afternoon prayers, vastly outnumbered by tourists. Thousands of worshippers used to gather at the mosque just a decade ago. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.